Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be here with you in Cannes. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. Huge congratulations on this film. For people who haven't seen the $6 billion man yet, what can they expect going in?
It's a true story. It's also a thriller. It exposes the most powerful and most sinister forces in the world trying to crush a revolutionary journalistic project, and a man who survived it all thanks to the public that mobilized to free him. And it's an inspiring movie.
And I guess you've been living this story for many years now. But when was the idea first put to you about making this documentary? And I think he was still in jail, right, when the documentary was first being made. And what was your first feeling about it?
Well, I really respect Eugene Jarecki as a filmmaker, so I was thrilled when I found out that he was interested in making this film. I'd followed his work, and we've been filming with him for at least 4 years now. But the footage that he had access to from WikiLeaks, we've been filming since the very beginning. So for the entire 14, 15 years I've worked with Julian, we've been filming behind the scenes because we wanted to document this story and what happened to Julian. And I'm thrilled that this film now tells this story. 14 years of legal battles, 14 years of persecution, and that here we are in Cannes. Julian is free, and the film tells that inspiring story about taking on powerful interests and winning, which is what he did and what we've done. And I hope that inspires people. It should both terrify them about the tactics that are used by governments, but also why it's important to stand up and push back against that. So this film is not just about Julian and his freedom, it's about democracy and it's about free speech and why we need to stand up for it.
And I mean, there's some really sort of hard to watch moments in the film, which probably hit you like quite personally, maybe when you were in the filming of it and doing those interviews. Did you ever find it quite challenging, or was it always there was enough motivation to tell this story that you were able to kind of get through that?
A bit of both. It was there were some very difficult and dark moments. He lost his freedom in 2010, and he was only released less than a year ago. And he had spent 5 years in Belmarsh, and there had been assassination plots, really intrusive surveillance, and a very oppressive atmosphere, and threats and death threats and so on. So obviously it was a difficult process, but it was also, we knew that the only thing that would ultimately set him free was if the broader public understood what was happening and if it was exposed. And so it was obvious we had to get that out, especially because there was a lot of propaganda and falsehoods in the opposite direction, basically enabling his imprisonment. And me and Julian's broader support and network and his lawyers and people from all around the world basically came together to upscale the attack on him. So to outcompete the attack on him. Incredible resources had been pushed into imprisoning him, but it was that attack was overwhelmed by the support he had in the end, which is what freed him.
And I think it's really interesting as well, because of course it's mainly about Julian, and there is, partly a character study there for him himself, but it does also bring in all of your journeys as well, and spotlight those, because obviously he's not someone who's been working alone. So was that really quite gratifying for you to be able to also tell your part of the story?
Well, really, I was telling Julian's story and the story of his case. And for me, it's so important, having worked with him for so long, to unpick the disinformation and propaganda that he has been subjected to for so long. I really hope that this film changes people's minds and helps them to understand what really happened and gives them a new perspective on Julian, on his legacy, on WikiLeaks, and why it's so important for free speech and democracy, and to understand why it's important for their own rights too. But for me, to be here with Stella and Julian, to know that they're living their lives together in Australia, and now to be here all together. I always believed we'd get him out of prison, and people said it would be impossible, but I always believed we would. It was just a matter of time. And I never gave up on that hope, and we did it. But I never expected to be here with you on a red carpet.
No. The other thing when I was watching it, I mean, obviously it does hit some of the beats of a kind of traditional documentary, but at other moments, it's like this high stakes kind of political thriller, like, Born Identity kind of style. When you watch it back as well, do you realize how his story is almost stranger than fiction?
That has been our experience. I mean, we've lived through this thriller.
Yeah.
It's been we've been at the forefront of some of the biggest geopolitical stories in the past 15 years, but also we were the subjects of it. We were in it and experiencing it. So I'm glad that people can now see what Julian went through and what we all went through.
Yeah. I mean, there have been other attempts to portray Julian's story that don't even come close to this film. When I would watch them, I would think, oh my God, how can they get it so wrong? Like, not just wrong, but utterly boring, like so superficial. The reality is, yes, like the high stakes Born Identity thriller. That's what it's like. And then you just watch this kind of regurgitated attack, basically, on Julian, on the case, that basically by the end of it made no sense. People who would be watching these or reading reports and so on would not understand what was going on. Like, how can it be, how could he face 175 years? And I think Eugene's film really brings everything together. He had the big picture, and he is a master storyteller, and he's able to bring all these elements together and expose things that had previously been twisted and so on, or concealed. And I think it does it really well.
And when you watch it back, do you have a moment, like a favorite moment, and one that you also feel like is probably the hardest to watch?
For me, I got emotional watching the end, which is at least the version I've seen. We haven't seen the final cut. So. But for me, I got emotional watching the last few scenes, which was the behind the scenes footage of us on the plane together and getting back to Australia. And then the images of Julian and Stella and the kids together in Australia. It's still quite surreal.
Yeah.
We worked so hard for so long for this outcome. And I love that it ends with a beautiful ending and a happy ending. So I love seeing that part of it.
There's lots of behind the scenes stuff that I had forgotten.
I know so much.
Yeah, and then
things we haven't seen were in it.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I was surprised by some of it.
Yeah. So that's I think that really adds to it, and I think it's great.
I think also because I'm a mum, the bit where you're having to like smuggle the baby into the, and I was just like, this is simultaneously just completely bizarre, but also just made me feel really like, I was almost like tearing up. So I was trying to imagine being in your position. So, when you watch bits like that and you think, oh my God, I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I also can't believe that actually happened. And so many of the things that we've been through, it's still shocking to me. And especially all the stuff with the surveillance. And we knew a lot was happening, but we didn't know the extent of it, obviously, while it was happening. Afterwards, there was a whistleblower and, the footage and all this information that later came to light. Mm-hmm. And it's still shocking to see that exposed, even though we lived through it.
But also, it's worth saying, and I'm glad that you connected with that part of the story about Stella, because you deserve to be recognised for what you did. Keeping a pregnancy secret, the measures that Stella took to keep her life private for so long, and then once Julian was arrested and was in prison in Belmarsh, she took the very difficult decision to speak out publicly, and he wouldn't be free today if she hadn't made that difficult decision and opened yourself up in that way and was his best advocate. And what you've been through with the kids, taking the kids to prison, raising two kids with a partner, her husband in prison, campaigning all over the world. It's amazing what you did.
In terms of the takeaways, I mean, as you said at the beginning, it is a harrowing watch, right from that opening clip of in Iraq where they gunned down, almost with glee, these civilians and journalists, right through, all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But it does kind of end on a positive note, in the sense that, it's up to us now, there's kind of this call to arms in a way, handing on to the next generation, handing on that baton. this is something that we all have to fight for, individually and collectively. So what do you hope people come out the cinema thinking about, questioning?
We have a saying, which is that courage is contagious, and being surrounded by people throughout these decade and a half of fighting for Julian's freedom, who are courageous, who are committed, and who will fight till the end for what they believe in, will fight injustice. That's what it takes to shape the world around you, and it's not really an option if you don't want to be at the mercy of others, of the powerful interests that want to decide how we live our lives, or what wars we get involved in, or the privacy on our mobile phones. We need to fight for every single thing. You need courageous people to do that, and anyone can be courageous.
I can't wait for people to see this film. It's about Julian Assange and his story and what he's done for journalism and the world, but it's much bigger than that. It's about democracy and free speech and why we need to defend it and why we all need to stand up for it. People that came together to support Julian. But I hope people come away from this and understand their own sense of agency and responsibility to join us in this fight, because it's for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and huge congratulations on the film. And I know the award yesterday too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so exciting. I know.